Life is Strange has been a series that has mostly slipped under my radar. I tried getting into the original years before, and though I enjoyed the themes it tackled, I didn't find myself getting through all of it, mostly due to the terrible dialogue, which just screamed 30-somethings attempting teenage angst, as well as more or less likely having my attention dragged away by whatever other game was popular among my friend group at the time. The graphic adventure genre is actually one that I've far too long neglected, and act especially heinous with how much I enjoy writing in games. It's wrong I promise to eventually write someday. Anywho, regardless of my grievances with the original, it would go on to garner a pretty great following of devoted fans as the franchise grew over the last 8 years, now having 2 mainline entries and a prequel. Now, here in 2021, Square Enix and Deck 9, their second time developing for the franchise since Dontnod is currently focusing on their own IP, have come forward with the latest entry, True Colors, with an all-new protagonist, superpower, and story that will more or less likely emotionally gut-punch you into submission. So, without further ado, let's talk about Life is Strange True Colors. Life is Strange True Colors is a graphic adventure that follows Alex Chen, who has spent the last 8 years in the foster care system, despite numerous attempts with different homes. The thing with Alex, however, is that sticking true to the Life is Strange formula, she has a secret superpower, hers being that of an empath that can physically feel the intense emotions of those around her. Not only can she feel them, but she can also remove people's emotions from them, taking their full brunt. The intensity of some people's emotions, however, have caused Alex to lash out violently toward those around her, which has left her feeling alienated and alone for most of her upbringing. The game begins with Alex reconnecting with her older brother Gabe, leaving the system to live with him in the small mining town of Haven Springs, Colorado, a town where everyone knows everyone. Gabe, a once troubled youth who had to do time in juvenile detention years before, is now a sort of town treasure who has made a lasting impact on all those he's surrounded by, from acting as a father figure for his partner Charlotte's son, to helping out a good friend of his prepare for college. He even lets Alex stay at his apartment rent-free, stating he's practically living with his significant other anyway. The reunion is cut tragically short, however, as later that night, Charlotte's son Ethan sneaks away to an old mining site that's scheduled to have detonations go off. When Alex, Gabe, and Ryan, Gabe's longtime friends, set out to find and save Ethan, who finds himself stuck across a ravine, the detonations are set off, resulting in the accidental death of Gabe. The tragic accident rocks the town and leaves Alex to not only get to the bottom of just why the detonations went off, despite warning that Ethan had gone missing when they were scheduled, but also bonding with and helping those affected by his loss and coming to understand what it means to belong. And though admittedly True Colors' story is predictable, as the game leans heavily into very obvious foreshadowing, so much so that my partner and I unraveled the 2 big twists fairly easily, the writing in True Colors is something to aspire to when it comes to the medium. The characterization is stellar, as each member of the cast really feels as if they exist to the game's world, as opposed to existing solely to interact with Alex. They have personalities that are shaped by their past, have or have had conflicts that exist outside the context of the story, and have lives that go on until you meet again. Dialogue is also exceptional this time around, as the game avoids the overuse of slang and teen speak, or at least what people 2 times older than the protagonist think how teens talk back in the original. This time around, the dialogue felt natural and seemed to capture just how 20-somethings actually speak. The exception being Ethan, the youngest of the cast, but only once or twice did I think that they were trying too hard with him. And when it comes to themes, True Colors takes an unwavering approach to topics like grief, mental health, illness, and others, with depth and care, while also just being emotionally devastating at times. There are moments where topics hit way too close to home, and I had to just step away for a while. Just a fair warning for anyone dealing with anything similar. Last couple of things before moving on to gameplay is atmosphere and very briefly music. Starting with the latter. Unfortunately, I can't show you all the music from the game due to a lot of it being copyrighted, with one of my VODs even getting muted because of it, but take my word when I say that it does wonders at elevating some of the most impactful moments. The visual storytelling is also really strong, as the town of Hope Springs is this beautiful, tucked away town surrounded by these massive mountains and creeks, and though it may seem a little too perfect, well, outside of the main plot, I think that sort of perfectness plays well thematically, if again a tad too familiar. Being a graphic adventure, decision making is what makes up the majority of Life is Strange's gameplay loop. During the majority of what's unfolding on screen, you'll be given the chance to pick between 2 to 4 dialogue options that range from having little to no consequences on the game, to affecting both entire relationships with characters or changing how events unfold later on. And though the writing is strong enough to generally inform you when a decision will matter, there will also be an audio chime with a lantern symbol that informs you when you've just made a game-altering decision. At the end of each chapter, you will see all the major decisions you made throughout, and if you have an online connection, they will be compared to all those who have also played that section. You can even compare it to your friends list and see what terrible decisions your friends made. Outside of the decision making, there are also sections that will require you to use your empathic abilities in order to not only see what it is that's causing whoever you're reading to feel the way that they are, but at times even read the emotional connections they have with items in a scene in order to deduce a possible solution to overcoming what it is they're feeling. There are some side quests that, like the dialogue options I mentioned, can either be just a bit of filler or have lasting consequences on the game, though the latter usually are from main or recurring characters, so it makes it easier to know which is which. There is an interesting break in the gameplay loop that comes in the 3rd chapter. Essentially, a live action roleplay session is planned out for the character Ethan to cheer him up after certain events take place. Alex joins by his side as a bard armed with an acoustic guitar, and the two go through town completing various quests in order to collect 3 magical gems. In doing so, you run into various creatures, which are really just a character Ryan dressed as each who comically leans into each role, and combat breaks out. Combat, however, is turn-based and has you making the decisions of both Alex and Ethan's moves, either using one of the abilities you are initially equipped with or find throughout, or using scrolls that give you abilities such as evasion and an additional turn. And in spite of being hinted at through the game prior to the chapter, the sudden shift to that still caught me off guard in a good way. Not only was it an incredibly charming moment of storytelling, as all these people in town came together to try and make Ethan's day a little brighter, it also acts as a fun diversion to what's all been going on, a sort of reprieve before diving back into the more emotional beats. A major thing that may be an issue for those who are interested in this title is the length. When True Colors wrapped for me, it came in at about 10 hours, which is shorter than its predecessors that come in at around 14 and 16 respectively. Being priced at $60 with not a lot of replayability outside of going through certain chapters and completing all side quests, I think that the game may be better priced if it were about $20 cheaper. I found Life is Strange True Colors to be a gripping graphic adventure that delivered a predictable but well-written story that placed me in the town of Haven Springs and made me care about the decisions I made, the characters I met, and the world I was thrown into through its entirety. Admittedly, this is my first graphic adventure I've played from start to finish, but for me, True Colors is now my personal standard for the genre going forward. Though despite how much I enjoyed this title, I will admit that it's a bit difficult to recommend for those who, like me, are uninitiated to graphic adventures, at least at its asking price. I would definitely recommend checking this one out, but maybe after it's dropped to about $40. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button to show your support and stay up to date with all new content. This has been Waxo, and until next time, take it easy.